Welcome to the Conquer Food podcast with Craig and Paula Williams, where we share tips, tricks and strategies from the coalface of the weight loss industry in the UK. We're going to help you to think, eat and move better. Ultimately, we're going to help you finally gain control and conquer food. Hey up and welcome back to the Conquer Food podcast. Today's question, how to lose weight when you're struggling with binge eating. So I've got a great panel with me again. So a little quick reminder, we've got Priya, former long-term boot camper, lost a massive amount of weight, now head of sales at TEAM Bootcamp, talks to more people about extreme weight loss than anyone else I know on a daily basis. Then we've got Paula, founder of TEAM Bootcamp and of the Conquer Food program, coached over 1,000 people throughout 10 years of the Conquer Food program. And we've also got Smudge, who's the current head coach of the Conquer Food program. And he really is on the coalface, working with people looking to lose a significant amount of weight, but also change their habits and lifestyles for the better. So you've got a great panel. I don't know of anybody that does this kind of work that these people do on a daily basis. So pin your ears back and well, you're not even turned up yet, so
my jobs.
Right, let me just turn this. What are you saying now? Come on in the cheap seats.
I don't do that anymore because they both nicked my jobs.
No, you gave the job away. Right, so our topic today, guys, just as a little reminder, how to lose weight when you're struggling with binge eating. So just the normal format that we do, it'd be great to have like a bit of a conversation with you lot, your own experiences. I'm sure we've all got experience with binge eating at some point. I know I have. You know, I used to see everything as an eating competition. I used to make my choices in the pub, you know, by how much I get on my plate. You know, I used to walk in, if it was like a all-you-can-eat buffet, I'd be like, let me be the judge of that. Because, you know, I was definitely a bit of a porker. And I know, you know, Paul, no doubt you'll talk about yourself. And I'm sure we've all got experience with binge eating. So let's talk about that. Let's paint a picture of you know, some of the people that are listening to this, like what are our own experiences? Why should they listen to us? Go on, you're in. Go on, you took a sharp intake of breath. You've been gobbing off all the way in the interlude and now.
I'm in because it's really heartfelt for me. And when you said that this was going to be the topic for this podcast, I kind of went a bit flushed, which I probably am still because...
Did you poo your pants a little bit?
First of all, anybody who's binge eating, I have the biggest heart and empathy for, because it is a horrible place to be, and it is like living on a permanent roller coaster. It's shit. It is really shit. At one point in my life, food controlled my thoughts from the minute I woke up in the morning, literally. The first thing that I would think about when I woke up in the morning was, what can I eat? And it would always be something sweet, and it really did control me. And I would go through periods of eating copious amounts of sweet foods, and then restrict to try and manage my weight, which I was able to do when I was training. But then when you and I opened boot camp and I couldn't train as much, then it became very evident that I was out of control with my eating. So I think it's a really difficult topic. It can be conquered. Yeah. Because I've conquered it. But it takes a lot of hard work and grit and tears.
Just a quick one though, so people just go, "Oh, I'm out."
Yeah, yeah. I
is it worth it?
100%, it's worth it. I'm in control now, you know, and I'm not using food to control my emotions. I feel
so.
free.
One word to describe that time when your binge eating was the most. One word to describe that time.
Hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one word to describe now.
I'm free. Freedom.
Yeah. Priya, what about you? What, from your own experiences, what?
It's basically, I feel the same way. Like, you get stuck in this vicious cycle, and every emotion happy, sad, anything will make you want to binge, and you're consistently in that cycle of restricting, and one day I'm not going to do it, and then you go out and have everything you can think of, because that becomes the habit that's created. And unfortunately, it is just you feel like you're stuck in a prison and in yourself, and the only way to really, get out of it, and I have, is to know that there is people out there struggling as well. And when it comes to binge eating, a lot of it is to do with how we feel about ourselves internally, and it is like a little prison that we're living in, but we do have that freedom to not be as unhappy as we are, and why we end up binge eating anyway, whatever the emotion is. So yeah, it's quite a sad time.
By the way, just before we crack on, there will be a link below with this video, with this podcast, wherever you're listening to it. And it's a link to our food addiction quiz. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you're addicted to food, but if you're binge eating, you've definitely got some kind of unhealthy relationship with food. Run yourself through the quiz and see what kind of the results you get. And, if at all you're wondering. But with that in mind, I mean, what are some of the signs and symptoms of somebody that's kind of struggling with binge eating disorder?
I think, as Priya said, it controls you. It's all you think about, and any emotion can bring it on. The one thing that I've come to the conclusion of through my own experience and seeing people that come to camp, I think if you are binge eating, it's the closest thing to being addicted to food as you can be, and therefore you have to treat it like an addiction. And this is where I think being addicted to food is really difficult, because if you're addicted to anything else, let's just say alcohol, it takes a lot of willpower, but you can put it away. Well,
society restricts it, doesn't it?
But food,
like not many of us can get up, like walk down the street having a whiskey.
No,
and it'd be accepted, but you can walk down the road and eat a bar of chocolate.
You have to, because you need food to survive. And I heard somebody say once that with alcohol you can put it in the cage and lock the cage and leave it, but with food you have to put it in the cage and take it out 3 times a day for a walk, and it can be really difficult. And I think the first step in tackling binge eating is accepting that there are certain things that you cannot eat, because they'll set it off. They'll start it. They're trigger foods. And I know you don't want to talk too much about camp, but just,
well, I don't necessarily want to talk about binge eating too much, because the question is kind of like how to lose weight. You might have people out there that know the binge eating, desperately trying to lose weight. And
not everyone.
But this is great. So carry on.
So what I see with some people is that they're not willing to accept that there's certain foods that they can't eat.
Trigger foods.
Yeah.
So what are the common?
Sweet things often, but then I say that crisps, anything salty, anything sweet and anything salty is really bad for a lot of people. But I've helped, supported, coached people who will say, "Oh well, I'll just have a little bit of it on a Friday." No, you wouldn't say to an alcoholic, "You can have a little bit on a Friday."
I mean, there are some people that can moderate, can't they?
But this is what I'm saying. You've got to, you've got to be honest with yourself about where you are. If you're the person who can take one biscuit and put them back in the cupboard, then you're okay. If you're the person who has a packet of biscuits and it keeps you awake at night until you've ate the whole packet, then you're not. And you've got to be honest with yourself about that. Otherwise, there's no beginning. That beginning comes with honesty about, it's a bit like kind of AA and things like that. You have to admit that you're powerless to it. And I think when you are a real binge eater, you are powerless to it.
To it?
Yeah.
But you're powerful in the ability to change. Smudge, just sort of switching lane a little bit, but how many people do you talk to on a week? What's the ratio of people on the Conquer Food program now, or people that you coach?
You can't say that now.
All right, okay. So
probably about 20%.
Yeah.
Maybe that will binge. And I think from my experience with the binge eating and the research I've done is it's one of the easiest ones to hide in plain sight. It's you can go and secretly eat somewhere in a public place. it depends who you're around, whether you're around people that you know, family, friends.
Yeah, but it's mad, isn't it? I was just thinking about it there. Like Christmas dinner, you could absolutely binge on Christmas dinner and no one would bat an eyelid.
Right.
But you wouldn't sit there and like snort a line of coke at Christmas dinner. But not in our family anyway.
Do you want to come round for Christmas?
how are you defining, binge eating?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
I think it goes back to that being powerless to it, because somebody could have Christmas dinner and binge, and I would call that just overeating. Somebody who's powerless to it wouldn't want to overeat, but would, and then would probably overeat that night, and you plan your binges.
Yeah, see, I think I'm an overeater. I'm just a greedy bastard sometimes. But, so what is... So you're saying that somebody who's a binge eater would plan that? How much food, like I know, and it's different for different people, but I want people to be able to differentiate. Are they just an overeater? Are they a binge eater?
I think, sorry, I feel like I'm taking, so I'll just say this and then I'll be quiet for a little while and let some other people, but I think that the key word again is being powerless. So if you equate it to an alcoholic, because that's easy for everyone to understand, people that drink will need it. They need it to make themselves feel better, and they will often plan their life around how they can get their drink. And if you are a real binge eater, then that's what you will do. It will consume a lot of your thoughts.
So has there been times when you've kind of eaten, perhaps in tears, knowing what you're doing, but unable to stop eating?
100%.
Really?
And you don't even feel full, and you don't even really taste it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the speed you get it in, so you can quickly get back to normal life. So no one can see the difference. And one thing I've noticed with some of the clients is, or the campers, or even my own, is they'll gain weight, and the family will see that they're gaining weight, or the partners or whatever, but they'll still deny it. And that's the evidence is in what you can see, as opposed to what you might be able to feel it, but in your mind you're telling yourself that you're not, because you've eaten quick, so you've hidden it. And it's because the addiction with it's such a huge part of somebody's life. It has to be replaced with something, whether that's gym, whether that's work, whether that's whatever it might be. Some of the most resourceful people out there are the ones who are addicts, because they will find all the ways possible to excuse the pun, to feed the addicts, whether that's alcohol, drugs, or food. So it's about rewinding almost and working out where that started from to move forward.
And it's another form of self-soothing, and you're eating emotions, you're stuffing them away.
Last thing on the binge eating, then we'll get on to how do you lose weight with binge eating disorder. What are some of the worst traits of someone that binge eats, and how does it make it worse?
I don't want to answer that by saying there's bad traits, because I think anyone who binge eats, anyone who is addicted to alcohol is using something to make themselves feel better, and I don't think that's a bad.
So how could someone recognise? How could someone recognise if they're sat there just thinking, I think I've got a problem, I'm not sure. How might I go and? So
the obvious one for me is like, if you're lying to your partner or your family,
secret eating.
Yeah, 100%. So secret eating when you hide things in your room, or you hide things under the bed, or you hide things under your duvet so no one can see.
Or in the boot of the car.
Or when you sit in the car and you binge so that you go home and no one knows you've eaten a whole load of food, and then you go home and you have dinner. So they think that you just eating 3 meals a day, whereas you've had a lot of food throughout.
Can I tell a little story about a couple of stories we've got? No.
Of my pain?
Yeah.
And you're laughing.
I remember. This is hilarious. So 2 stories I want to share, right? Really early days, wasn't it? Years, over a decade now. And we'd had a nice meal, hadn't we? And we'd finished off with like this ice cream, this like luxury ice cream. And I was like, right, I'm going to go for a run. So I went out for a run, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot my headphones or whatever. So I come back, and Paula wasn't in the lounge. I was like, oh, where is she? I walked into the kitchen, and she had her head in the freezer, right? And she was munching on this ice cream, and she slammed the door. I could see like she was like, no, like this. And she goes, you came home, it's like, you weren't supposed to come back. You weren't supposed to come back. I was like, oh, whatever. And I was like, which went down well. But and then the other one was moving house, do you remember? And we had this cupboard under the stairs. And I'm laughing about it now, but I appreciate how serious it was. And I emptied this cupboard of like, Paula's old record collection from when she was a kid, and a lot of old shoes. I think there was some Crocs in there, believe it or not. Clean all this. And then at the back there was just like loads of biscuit wrappers and half-eaten cakes and stuff like that. I was like, Paula, what is this? And she was like, you came home early. but I think that's an indication of like this secret eating. The fact that I come home and you was like, boom, threw it all in the cupboard and and hiding it. So
I think that's the beauty of it now, is that you can look back and you can laugh at it, because even though at the time it is the worst pain you can feel, and family members now, they laugh at the situations that I was in, but at the time it's one of the worst pains because it's uncontrollable. Like, you physically can't control wanting to eat.
It's an addiction.
How much you want to eat, or where you go to eat, or how much you eat, or when you eat.
What story? I know, Paul, you've got a couple of stories of people that shared stuff with you about how the lengths they've gone through to...
I mean, I've had some great Conquer Food sessions where we've discussed our stories and really howled and laughed about them, but one of the greatest ones was a guy that was at McDonald's, and we've all done this. I've gone into cake shops and pretended I'm having all the girls come over, and I'll say, right, how many have I got? 8. And so would like those. I'll have 2 of those, please. And they're all
Meanwhile,
for me.
the cashier's like, whatever,
they're all
mate.
for me.
Or pretending you're on the phone to your friends. Oh, what do you want?
Yeah, this one particular guy was at McDonald's drive-through. He was on his phone, pretending to be on his phone, and said, I want this meal and that meal, and ordered copious amounts, and then his phone rang. And the guy said, do you still want it? Right? And he went, yep. So we've got loads, and we do laugh about it, and I think that's just, you have to, but it is a tough one.
When you laugh about something, it does make sense in the mind, so it actually gives it a different spin.
It's good idea.
Which is dark humour in the military works because it makes light of something that you wouldn't normally laugh. So when it becomes humorous, it's like different.
Right, let's again just sort of switch up a little bit. So the original question, how to lose weight when people are struggling with this binge eating then. So are we saying that all binge eaters have got a weight problem and that's that? No, I don't think that we can say that. So, the other thing I suppose is, what when we talk about losing weight, I mean, do you think people are they talking about long-term sustainable weight? Are they thinking about any weight, therefore like with water weight? Are they sitting in a sauna? And you know what I mean? So what's your thoughts on that? Like how can people start the process of weight loss if they are suffering with binge eating? Recognition,
knowing that it's like we spoke about in the first podcast about taking ownership, and if you know you're secretly eating, then you haven't got to out yourself in front of the family or the people that you care about. Seek some help somewhere, whether that might be friends or, but recognise it and then know that, because it's a learned behaviour, understanding that if you've learned to do it, you can learn to not do it. But again, there's a process, and because it is an addiction, it needs to be, or can be a huge addiction. That vast part of somebody's life will need to be filled with something else. So definitely admitting and then knowing you can make a choice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think it starts with honesty, and to stop lying to yourself, because I think you lie to yourself, and it goes back to something I mentioned earlier, which is recognising the foods that you can't stop eating.
Are we saying, just reel it back a little bit, are we saying that while someone is suffering with binge eating, they're going to struggle to lose? Weight loss is irrelevant, or it's not going to happen?
No, I'm not saying that at all, because I don't think you can say that, because everyone's completely different. I mean, I've coached people who have problems with binge eating who are thin. They don't have a weight problem. Because for some people, when they binge, the period between is longer. So some people will binge eat and restrict for long periods of time to manage their weight. Some
people got age on their side.
Some people will binge and purge. So I think everybody's different. So you don't really know. So that it's actually quite a difficult question. And I know the reason you brought it up is because it's a really common thing that people ask in Google. It's a question that people ask. And I think that the people that are asking that are the people that are binge eating regularly, because I was doing it every day at one point, and doing it regularly, and are putting on weight as a result of it, and are struggling to lose that weight. So you've got to tackle that. There's so many things. It's such a big thing. But I think for me, I would tackle it as an addiction and remove initially the things that really drive you crazy. For me, it was cake. And I wouldn't even touch cake now, because it would just send me over the edge. And so I think you've got to be honest. But sometimes I'll say to people, I don't know whether you've done this, Smudge, how would it make you feel to not have that for the rest of your life? And it sends them into a flat spin. They're terrified of not having it.
If you make it a choice as opposed to telling yourself you can't have it.
Yeah.
So you know yourself, if you tell the mind it can't have something, it's like going to a museum saying don't touch this.
Yep.
Your mind then wants to do it more. So by just shoving it away and hiding it in the corner makes it want more and more and more. So by turning that round to become a choice, and knowing that you can unlearn the past to relearn it, to make it a choice, you're actually almost thanking yourself for making good decisions as opposed to bad. And I think sometimes as well, the actual weight loss is irrelevant to binging, to the binge eating. It's almost like it's a result of the binge eating. So just losing weight won't stop the binge eating. It's sorting out those top 3 inches first, and it'll just start to filling the champagne glass up at the top. But yeah, to just lose weight and then think you've conquered the binge eating is what's the word? Too far removed, I think.
I think like the weight loss is almost like the weight is a symptom of a much deeper thing.
Absolutely.
You know, and I, you know, binge eating was something that we've not said, that if you're binge eating, over consuming food, and then the foods that you predominantly, whilst you're, you know, in a binge, whether it's sweet, salty, and fatty, which is irresistible for humans, you know, that combination, all of that is going to make it really hard biologically to lose weight. You know, when you look at like the hormones that are getting triggered and the imbalances in the body, add then as well the time of day that a lot of binges happen. It's a big assumption, but I'm thinking sort of evenings to late nights. Is that right? Or I know you might do it throughout the day, but you know,
whenever you can.
Yeah.
Not anymore, but I think it's so personal.
Let me just finish.
It's such a personal thing.
Right. All of that, you know, that the way that our body works in cycles and rhythms, those are going to throw all that out. You know, and biologically, you are going to struggle to lose body fat, which is what we talk about. When people talk about lose weight, you know, we can go in and sit in a sauna for an hour and lose weight. You know, you can go for a jog around the block, sweat it out, and you've lost weight. It's water weight, but you're not, you know, and a bit of glycogen in the muscles and whatever. What we're actually talking about is fat. You make it really hard to lose fat whilst you're eating in that manner. So add that as well. You know, another thing is your appetite. It really, your appetite is chemicals in the body sending different messages, and just that method of eating completely screws your appetite as well. You know, with the different like fat cells produce a hormone that encourage you to eat more, and you know, you're just a ton of stuff. It just makes it really hard on a biological level before we even talk about like lifestyle and habit sort of stuff.
I actually think as well that when you're consuming these foods, for some people, from personal experience, for me, I had no energy. I didn't want to go for a walk. I didn't want to go to the gym. So even though I was binge eating, I could have still maybe gone for a nice walk or gone to the gym, but I had no energy because of everything that I was eating. I just didn't want to.
You did have energy, and you had an excess of energy, but you couldn't tap into it. And this is what I'm saying with the hormones. You know, the way I describe it is, if your car's in forward, you can't be reversing. The body's the same. If the body is in a fat storage mode, it can't use fat as energy. So therefore, you can consume loads, trigger certain hormones, which makes it impossible to use body fat as an energy source and feel like you've got no energy. You know,
sluggish, completely, sluggish all the time.
And imagine now the amount of energy you put into binge eating, to planning when you're going to have it, where you're going to buy it, what you're going to get, how quick you can get it down you, how you can hide it, how you can clean up afterwards. Imagine having the ability to relearn that power to then plan the other way around.
To be free.
So when you're tired and drained and wiped, the energy you're using out of your mind to plan all that will wipe you. And then you've got the guilt that follows afterwards. Then you've got the, can somebody tell? So then you start looking for the unconscious cues from somebody to then, are they? I don't know. I don't know. And it then becomes a cyclical way around it. So recognition, definitely, and then it's relearning what the subconscious and unconscious has learned over a period of time. And a sprinter uses blocks to run off from. So
yeah, it's such a big topic, and it's a difficult one. And I think the question, how do you lose weight? It's the same. They're two separate things. You know, losing weight, we spoke about in a previous podcast, we touched on, but it's, you know.
Yeah, I suppose it's slightly different analogies, like climbing a mountain. Some people start a mountain kind of halfway up, and, you know, for them to lose weight is, you know, it is still a challenge, but then there's other people that are right down in the valley.
Yeah.
And am I right saying that, like, if you're struggling with binge eating, that you know you're almost in the depths of it, like you've got somewhere to go before you even really consider serious weight loss?
Absolutely. And the reality of it is why do you want to stop something that gives you pleasure?
Yeah.
That takes away your pain and gives you pleasure. Why do you want to do that?
Is that a question for me?
No, it's you know, that's the thing. And this way it goes back to, again, a previous podcast that we've done. You've got to want to not do it so badly.
And that's why if you break down a house to how it's built first with the foundations, the plans and the foundations, and build it back up, you can start off from where it began, relearn and then work out that actually you can achieve and you can turn it around, because it absolutely can be helped and conquered, for want of a better phrase. Instead of just saying it's just something I do, I'm a binge eater. You know, you're a person who does something that can be relearned. But you've got to want to relearn it, and that's, I think, the glory of it is, and some of the stuff that we do with the coaching is, we don't care what the story is. You know, it's if you've got a tent frame, the frame remains the same, but you can put any sheet on it.
Yeah.
So if there's embarrassment there because you're not going to share the stories, then, you know, the building blocks are the ones that you can use to fix it, so to speak. But yeah, it can definitely be moved. But
are we saying, like, just in your own experience, do people need therapy in order to?
100%. I think people need therapy, but I'm beginning to believe that the whole of the population needs therapy. But therapy in a way. I'm going back to the trauma that I was speaking about earlier. I think there's so much research and evidence now to suggest that we all suffer trauma, and we're very good at repressing our emotions.
Is it trauma behind binge eating?
I have to be really careful. My belief is yes. There will be people that don't believe that, but my belief is yes, and I'm doing a lot of research into that at the minute. I think it underlies a lot of people's trauma. But the problem is, everyone thinks that trauma is a huge, great big thing, but it's not.
Well, it doesn't have to be. It is some is trauma.
For some people, of course it is. For some people, it's evident that they've suffered trauma, but other people, it's just wounds that haven't healed. And when they've not healed, there's a whole body of scientific, research and evidence now to suggest that we hold on to it. And so on subconscious levels, our body is screaming out for it to be fixed. We're human beings. We're constantly looking to survive. So we're constantly looking of ways to fix our pain, our issues, if that's what you want to call them,
If it becomes a norm, then the unconscious mind needs routine. So when that routine is kicked in, it's the easiest thing to do is to do it, because you can plan really quick, you can eat really quick. So again, the recognition and knowing that it will take effort. And I haven't met anybody yet through binge eating, whether that's through conquer food or vice versa, that there isn't some kind of trauma involved, whether that's a build-up of small events over a period of time, or whether that's just one significant life event. And ultimately it's about changing your learnings from that to move forward and relearn, which absolutely can do.
But it goes back again to key words that come back in every podcast that we do. It's awareness. It's speaking your own truth to yourself, taking responsibility for yourself and taking responsibility for your own healing, because that's how I see it. And it's tough, but it's just another expression. I mean, what about the gym junkie? Everyone thinks he's great, but he's still, consumed by, when am I going to this? When am I going to that? Things suffer. I am studying at the moment under a guy who was addicted to classical music. But it became so bad that he spent all of the family money and never saw his family, and stopped going to school plays and stopped being with his wife, because he spent his whole time in the music shops. And we can laugh about that, but it becomes a massive issue. I don't know how I got to classical music from binge eating, but
I don't know.
It's a good analogy. Only I could do that.
I don't know. You orchestrated it.
Well,
Pavarotti managed it. So,
but the point that I'm making is, we make out that anything that we're addicted to, any behaviour, it's not uncommon, and it's normal, and it's just a human being looking after themselves. It's like when you ask somebody to stop binge eating, it's like taking a dummy away from a child. That in itself can create trauma. The thought of not having that.
Well, I remember having a conversation, and I soon realised that I had to explain, when I was coaching someone with nutrition, I had to explain that there are certain things you had to give up. But for most people, it wasn't forever. So I remember having a conversation and saying, look, we're going to have to cut out the chocolate. And the dread on the face was like, without chocolate, what have I got? And I'm like, oh, freaking a ton of stuff. You know what I mean?
I can remember that feeling.
Yeah, and so it's just understanding that, for more, there will be trigger foods. There'll be some things you've completely got to stay away from. But a lot of the things that you're worried about giving up, it doesn't have to be forever. I mean, when I was a chunker, I just, I cut out some foods, and I didn't eat that until I was to a place where I was kind of happy with my health and fitness. And then, by that time I could just moderate a little bit, I'm a little bit blessed, I suppose, that I don't really have a trigger food. But that's what the key thing to remember is, you don't have to give it up, or chances are you don't have to give it up forever.
No, you don't.
You don't have to grieve it.
So learning to have the choice again.
Yeah,
so
again.
Learning to consciously make a choice, as opposed to letting the unconscious just do it. It's that conscious. When you walk through a shop, they don't pull all the barriers down so you can't see the food. So it's about walking past and having that. You might have the thought, You also might have the thought to go,
Look, I've heard you loads of times saying, you know, I can eat whatever I want, but I choose not to. And that makes you powerful.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly what Smudge is saying, and that's what I used to
You're having a real
teach.
nightmare with that microphone.
Yeah, I am. That's what I used to teach people was, I remember my sister saying to me once, oh, you can't have that, can you, about Chinese? And I said, I can have as much of it as I want. I'm just choosing not to. You know, and you're right, it has to. You can't be in restrict. You know, you can't restrict yourself. So again, you have to, the reason for not doing it has to be greater than the reason for doing it. Otherwise you won't do it.
So we're coming to the end. We've done
can I just share a little binge story?
Share
another one that popped into my head that I feel
have you got any
I need
food
to
that you can share?
No, I haven't got any food. But this, anyone who's listening to this who's a binge eater will relate to this. This is how bad I was at one point in my life, and this happening was very instrumental into me going, no, I can't do this anymore. I ate my sister's birthday cake before the candles were lit and it went out to her. So,
well, you'd burn your face if the candles were lit, wouldn't you? So
that is just a terrible thing. A terrible thing.
What was driving you there, though? I mean,
I just wanted the cake.
What, even though social structure suggests like you should that cake is off limits until they've blown out the candles and offered you a piece.
It hadn't even gone out of the kitchen, out to the table to sing happy birthday.
Fair play.
Yeah.
And what? And at that point, you just thought, "Fucking, that's this. I can't. We've got to sort this out." And what was the first couple of steps for you then, Paula?
One step forward, 10 million steps back. I think having TEAM Bootcamp has been my thing, and if I think about it, it's been a 15-year struggle, and it's only in this last year, because I've said I'm having a year to sort myself out. I'd made that commitment at the beginning of this year that this was it.
You'd made it a priority.
I've made it my priority, and having a boot camp and coaching people who had the same issues as me was really tough.
How many?
Feeling a hypocrite is the worst feeling in the world.
I'll throw this out to all of you. Just listening to you there, you know, and talking about priorities and what have you. How many people have you met that are struggling with binge eating and all that kind of stuff? That you love the microphone so much, don't you? He's like scratching his nose.
Can you hear it? Oh, sorry.
That have got other priorities, like family members looking after, jobs that they're taking care of. You know, they've got other stuff that, you know, clearly it's not their priority. How many times have you kind of come across that?
Countless times.
Yeah. But that's because, again, huge body of evidence and research to suggest that the majority of people that suffer from mental health, anxiety, you know, eating disorders tend to be people that put other people before themselves. So really kind of quite highly sensitive people. And so they wouldn't be a priority. They wouldn't see themselves as a priority anyway.
Add to that low self-esteem like we spoke about before.
Yeah.
You can kind of see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
Lack of stress management as well.
Yeah.
If the eating becomes a stress management, then the stress that you'll get from outside, if you're not dealing with, if your stress management is poor, then the quickest thing to do is to nip the shop and go and do what you need to do, or whether that's food, whether that's alcohol, whether that's a sport, gym. That's one thing I noticed is the stress management in people, and one of the biggest things I teach, I suppose, is once you've made one good decision, you can never turn around and say you can't make a good decision. So one step forward, 10 million steps back.
Yeah.
You can never turn around and say I've never taken a step forward. And for some people like that's pretty powerful, because you're showing the mind that it can do it, which is that forward language, that positive language about moving forward, as opposed to I can't, I never have, but it's paramount.
Quite profound, yeah. Right, let's imagine we've got someone sat in front of us, right, that's struggling with binge eating, losing weight, well, whatever, you know. what would your call to arms be? What would you say to them? Priya, you've not really been in this part. You're going to have to go first on this
Yeah,
one.
I've been a bit quiet. I think because obviously it's so close to my heart, and you know I've been through it. I think genuinely, if someone was sitting here right in front of me now, I mean, first of all, I'd give them a big hug. I'm not going to lie. I would just give them a massive hug, and just that I can relate, and I know the struggles, but that it will be okay. I know that sounds very cliche, but sometimes if someone did that for me, I would have broken down in tears with happiness. Like I would have just loved that moment for someone to know kind of the pain that you're going through and understand that you are not the only one, and that there is that struggle. It is difficult. It is hard. You are caged in, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you can get help. There is help out there for you, and you can get the help to be free and to be free of that emotional eating, binge eating, feeling constricting, feeling that all you have in your life is that food. Like that's your relationship, that's your happiness, that's your go-to for everything. If you're sad, it will comfort you, it won't let you down. But there's more to life than just that. And when you are freed from all of that, it's a beautiful world.
Oh, Paula, I'm going to come on to you. What I will say is that anyone listening to this, you know, and if you just want someone to chat to, if you phone the TEAM Bootcamp line, you'll get in touch with Priya, and you can have a bit of a chat. Whether you come on the Conquer Food program or not, you know, you just want someone that you can resonate with, and then I kind of recommend you to do that. Paula, what would you say?
I would ask them a question, and that question would be why? Why do you want to stop? That would be it. Because I think that's the question they need to ask themselves. Because I truly believe it's key. You know, sometimes people don't realise that the reason they want to stop is because other people want them to, or other people don't like the way they look, or other people don't like the things that they're doing. You know, this is about, I'd say this is about you. This is your journey. This is your life. So why? You know, what? Because we know it's bringing pleasure, but what's followed by that is pain. Does the pleasure that you get from it outweigh the rocky road that you're going to have to go through to get to where you want to be? So I think I'd be a bit real.
Yeah.
With someone, you know. That I feel personally at the minute that I want to jump from the rooftops and scream to the whole of the planet. This life is amazing and it's beautiful, and you can have everything you want, but it comes with hard work. Are you down for that? Get me gangster head on. But
oh wow!
Are you there? You know,
I want to see that.
Yeah. Are you there? Because if you're not, that's okay. Because you're not ready.
There are some people, I suppose, that are just not.
And they're
ready.
not.
Yeah.
And we see that. Some people just aren't ready. But you know what? That is okay if you're not ready. When you're ready, then you need to be ready. And you need to know in your gut that you're ready. You need to burn with fire. And then
Get on
you
with
can
it.
be who you want to be.
Smudge?
Sit on the edge of your bed. Take a huge deep breath in the morning. And as you breathe out, just think yourself, what have I got to do to get that monster inside? And what would the future self tell you now?
Yeah.
It's a great little exercise.
Just become the monster. Become your own monster.
Yeah.
Well, again, that's been a really insightful episode from you all. Some great advice there. I think what we're basically saying is, look, you know, the original question was how to lose weight when you're struggling with binge eating. What we're saying is you can't have one and the other at the same time. You can't have literally your cake and eat it. You know, you've got to tackle this binge eating. There are things that you can do. There's ways that you can get around it, as the people around this table have proven and spoke about. So I'm going to leave it there. Hope you got some good stuff from this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.